Accessing agent files. Brian Sovryn. Early 21st century anarchist. Creator and host of the podcast Sovryn Tech. By the year 2021, the show would be instrumental in the downfall of various conservative ideologies in the government, helping usher in an incredible time.
Hey, want to take a walk on the wild side and experience the bleeding edge of technology? Then get ready, because it doesn't get much more edgy than this. You're in for a wild ride. You're listening to Sovryn Tech with your host, the man in triple black, the golden stallion of the tech world, Brian Sovryn. He's got a huge brain. And now here's Brian.
From his formerly nicotine-stained hands. Wait a minute. I've never smoked before. That's not even my line. Who the hell's line is that? Oh, yeah, that guy. No. The Libertine-in-Chief here with you. Yes, ready for an episode of Sovryn Tech to ease your tech woes, or maybe to enhance them. We have a lot to talk about. A whole hell of a lot of it isn't very good, admittedly, but hey, I got to do a show. But why don't we start off with some good stuff? And before I get into it, though, I do want to mention that I will be going to, that's right, Inside Bitcoins in Las Vegas in October. Now, you are welcome to help crowdfund this venture because, quite frankly, as listeners of this show know how I feel about Inside Bitcoins, it is truly one of the dens of iniquity, and frankly, it could use the insertion of a few good anarchists. And I would be one of those. So if you wish to help me get there, there are plenty of donation options available at sovryntech.com. Of course, you can donate via PayPal, which some people have done recently, and I appreciate that. Also, you can donate via various cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Blackcoin, BitShares, go down the list. Or actually, you know, I need to set up a BTSX account for that, but I will get that set up because that's really starting to take off. NXT, of course, which we're going to talk about NXT later. That can also be donated along with Litecoin, Namecoin. There's a few there. Just look in the show notes. You can find all of that info. But if you want to do PayPal, that's on the left-hand side of sovryntech.com. So myself and the lovely and hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy will be there. And yeah, what else is there to say about that? You know how I feel about that place. Both places, Las Vegas as well as, any of these Inside Bitcoin conferences, right? But hey, maybe they're trying to class it up a little bit. Who knows? All right, so let's get into the rapid fire stories. Now, some good stuff to start off with. First off, DirectX 12 is, getting closer to release, being very highly developed. And I took a good look at it. And I'm going to guess DirectX 12 will come out when Threshold comes out. Of course, that being the tentatively named Windows 9. And that should be out in like April, spring 2015 is when we're expecting that. I'm going to guess DirectX 12. They're going to probably try and pull another Vista. And I know you wouldn't think Microsoft would try and pull any other Vista-like stunts, but look at Windows 8 and you get the sense that, yes, they're willing to pull Vista-like stunts. And so probably DirectX 12 will be available exclusively for Windows 9. That's my guess. And that it'll become a selling point for it. And they had it running, looking at an asteroid field on something that was using Intel HD 4400, and it looked gorgeous. DirectX 12 looked fantastic. For those that don't know what DirectX 12 is, it is a gaming, I'll say engine, essentially. I mean, engine might not be the best term, but it is for gaming by and large. Yes, it gets used for other things, I know, but by and large, it is something that is meant to make PC gaming look better. And it has been a very important, it's been very integral for years to make games look so good. And it's made Windows really the premier platform for PC gaming up until recently, when Crytek finally said that they would be taking the CryEngine to Linux as well. So that, that kind of changes things up. But anyway, that's my guess. And so really, this isn't about DirectX 12. This is about Windows 9 and Microsoft pulling off some questionable, marketing tactics, I think. And I could be wrong, but that's just a guess. I also guessed that there's going to be like a gaming edition of Windows 9. And honestly, and I talked about that many, many episodes ago. And I think this is, sprinkling in that direction. Now, maybe they won't drop the Xbox One like I predicted, but maybe they still will. Ooh, that's a hot property to sell off, especially when you need to make your numbers look good at Wall Street. So, but talk about numbers looking good at Wall Street. Chromebooks are selling out of their ass. I mean, they're everywhere. You're getting 20 million shipped. You're getting, and then there's at least 5.5 million expected to be sold by the end of the year. All really great numbers for such a new market. And it really is. It's been around for a few years now, but it's still a pretty new market. And really if you've been interested in getting a Chromebook, the Chromebook that matters is about to get released. And this is the Acer Chromebook 13. It is available for pre-order. Comes in a couple different flavors. Unfortunately, it is only white. I'd at least prefer silver, but whatever. It comes in moonstone white. You can get it with a 2 gig of RAM or 4 gig of RAM. I recommend the 4 gig of RAM. Anybody that's bought a C720 or any of the 2 gig Chromebook models has run into where, this could go a little faster if it had a little more RAM, but the RAM is soldered in, so you can't upgrade it yourself. Acer is really solving that. They're offering a 4 gig model right out of the gate. Does not have a backlit keyboard. I think a lot of people ask about that, but the keyboards on Acer's, the Island keyboards feel really nice. And this Chromebook also has the first one to have the Tegra K1 processor in it. And this thing is powerful as hell. Really, the K1 is serious. In fact, we've talked recently about the NVIDIA Shield tablet. That has the Tegra K1 in it as well. Now, I've heard conflicting reports. Some people have said that the K1 in the Chromebook 13 from Acer is the 64-bit version, the Denver version. But as I understand it, that's not so, because the first device to have the Denver isn't out there. But maybe it is. And there is a difference as I understand it. There's a K1 that's 64-bit and there's a K1 that isn't. And the one that is the Denver. Maybe that will be in this device. I could be dead wrong. So, but just keep that point in mind. And also the options, when you go between the 2 gig and the 4 gig, the 2 gig model, of course, selling for $280, the 4 gig model selling for $380. You also get the drastic difference of onboard, hard drive space, flash memory, that going from 16 gig with the 2 gig model and then 32 gig with the 4 gig model. I totally recommend spending the extra $100. Because you also get with this beauty, you get a 1080p screen. Awesome. It's only the second Chromebook to really do that. Of course, the Pixel being a very different story because that had, that ridiculously beautiful screen resolution on it. But this one and the new Samsung Chromebook are the only two to have a 1080p screen. It also has wireless AC. Okay, so it has the latest wireless spec built into it. This is a real hot commodity. And I liked it. Actually, it looks like one of the USB, the 3.0 ports, the USB 3.0 ports on it is actually in the back. So is the HDMI cable. It's on the back of the laptop. I thought that was pretty slick. I like that look, that design. So this is the one to grab. If you have not gotten a Chromebook yet, just hold your horses and get this guy. And I recommend spending the $380 on it. As we're going to talk about throughout this episode, you can, in many ways, you can choose privacy or security. And there is really no platform. And even Edward Snowden said that when people asked what web browser should I use, he said, well, one offers privacy, one offers security. Okay. And there is a trade-off involved there. in the tech world. I'm not saying there has to be. I'm just saying that right now, as things stand, as programming allows, that's how it is. Okay. And so, Chrome OS is the most secure platform out there, bar none. And, and if you want to have that security, not so much the privacy, perhaps, because all your information is going to Google, then go for a Chromebook. And if you are going to go for a Chromebook 13 is the one to go with. Okay, moving on. Other Google news. Now, apparently Google is shaking some things up with Hangouts. Hangouts has really become a focal point of a lot of their dev teams, it seems, and they're making it a very separate product, which I think is a good idea. It being tied in with, other Google features is a mistake. I mean, I think centralizing everything onto one big platform like Google Plus is a mistake in the first place. But Ultraviolet is what they're calling it, and it's a new version of Hangouts that is going to apparently look a lot like, as I understand it, as I have read it, it's going to look a lot like Facebook Messenger, to where you're going to have chat heads. But not only chat heads on your Android device, but chat heads effectively on your desktop as well. And obviously this would, happen on a Chromebook too. And so whatever, I mean, Hangouts it has a lot of room for improvement. So I'm interested to see what they can implement into that. And the other thing though, that I am actually kind of excited to see is Google is developing a new bookmarking system. I may have mentioned it in the past on this show, but it is starting to rear its head again. It kind of appeared a few months back, then it went to, it dug itself underground and we were expecting a big release on it. And now it's coming back up and it still looks like it needs a lot of polish, a lot of development, but I am excited about this. And it's Stars. It's called Google Stars, and it is designed to replace the bookmarking system. Save bookmark on the internet in your web browser. It is designed to replace that. I can't really describe it entirely. And again, there's not a whole lot to describe because it is kind of rough around the edges, but I think this is one of those things that needs a good refreshing. There is no reason that bookmarks should stand as they are in a digital realm. To copy what you do with normal books, I mean, is really thinking this is like how web pages are just copying newspapers, the look of a newspaper or the look of a magazine. It's like, no, you have this really rich content digitally that you can break all the rules with. Why would you mimic, old world stuff, not natural stuff, old world stuff? There's nothing wrong with wanting to mimic nature, but this isn't mimicking nature. So I'm looking forward to that. Just something to look out for that's on its way. I just don't want it to blindside you. Say, where did that come from? But something that will blindside you are video ads on Twitter. Yay! Woo! Go Twitter! You figured out how to monetize. But not really. I find these video ads so annoying. So incredibly annoying. Twitter, I don't think this is going to help them at all. They are finally starting to turn a profit on their mobile end, which is, I guess, great to hear. But yeah, you're gonna start seeing video ads. So that will, I didn't want that to blindside you either, but it's going to kind of do it either way. A little more Google. And I want to talk about this real quick because I'm not hearing, like I always say, I'm not hearing my opinion out there. I'm not hearing my thoughts out there in the rest of the tech world. And so I'm going to give it to you here. And this is Google is laying down fiber, and it is fiber, from California to Japan. They're going to lay down some new line. It's going to cost some odd $300 million, something along those lines. And now they had already kind of done this in 2009. There had been a laying down of some fiber, some wire, from California to Japan. And, and of course, the common story is this is to enhance communications, between the two areas. And what I really think this is for, and I can be wrong, but what I really think this is for is to take advantage of the incredible infrastructure and speeds that are already available in Southeast Asia. There's a lot of parts of Japan in particular that are getting 3 gigabit internet. Forget 1 gigabit internet that Google Fiber offers. They're getting 3 gigabit internet. And so I think Google is they know that this is the area that has the infrastructure that's delivering the goods, delivering the speed. And I think this may be the most inexpensive way for them to take advantage of that speed, because otherwise they have to launch a bunch of satellites, which they're already going to do, but they have other plans for those. I think that's what this is really about, is to get all of that speed in the cheapest way possible. And I haven't heard anybody say that, so that's why I kind of wanted to talk about it. But speaking of internet improvements, let's talk about internet improvements. Now, as a lot of listeners of this show know, I often like to talk very much about not just internet, but internets. I like to talk because I want a bunch of them. I want tons of, I don't just want TCP/IP. I want a whole shit ton of implementations of the internet. And apparently, I'm not the only one. And I'm glad to hear it. Okay. And I don't want to rely on, the modern implementations of technology, which I've talked about many times, the modern implementations of, the way the stuff is transmitted, however that is, be it cell towers, you take your pick. And so we're going to talk about both right now, both very exciting topics before we get into perhaps a depressing topic about NXT in Tech Roulette. So the first thing I want to talk about, and this is the one I'm a little more excited about than the other, but the other one is still positively phenomenal. But I love this, and it's called Outernet. And I found out about this because a listener tweeted at me and told me about it, and I really appreciate that listener doing that. And I'm going to read from the LA Times to explain to you what Outernet is, and then we're going to get into another technology. Outernet explained: broadcasting the content of the web. Imagine life without the internet. That's the reality for much of the world, almost 5 billion people, in heavily censored or remote areas where the internet remains largely unavailable. Outernet, a New York-based tech company, wants to change that. Starting August 11th, which just passed, Outernet will broadcast by satellite more than 5,000 Wikipedia articles, along with several other pieces of internet content. Anyone in North America or Europe with a small satellite dish and some what is known as KU band and some hardware will be able to receive and locally download the information, almost like a DVR for the internet. Outernet is not the internet. Instead, it operates like two one-way streets, one between the user and Outernet and one between Outernet and their satellites. The company has leased bandwidth on 2 geostationary satellites which reach all of North America and Europe. Outernet plans to achieve worldwide access by the end of 2014. Outernet downloads the files it will eventually transmit from Wikipedia, Coursera, or elsewhere and saves them offline. The files are stripped of any broken links, reformatted into bare-bones versions of the originals, and sent to its servers. And then pretty much Outernet, beams it up to their satellite, and then the satellite broadcasts it back down as radio waves. This is, Golden Stallion here telling you, this is as I've talked about in the past. Okay? This is data packet radio, one of the implementations that you can do with data packet radio. And you don't need a whole lot of hardware to make this happen. This can all be received with a radio or with a Raspberry Pi and a KU band satellite. This is really wild stuff. Now it is, again, it's 2 one-way streets. This is not something that you can access. Okay, I will connect to Outernet and then I will be able to talk on Facebook. No, that's not how this works. But what it is a transmission of, all of humanity's knowledge, or at least that's the potential of it, is to transmit everything they possibly can, the entirety of Wikipedia, and make it available for everybody around the world, all 7 billion people around the world, totally for free. This is really exciting. And to talk about this, we have this show, Sovryn Tech, is syndicated on LRN.FM. Now, LRN.FM makes use of similar technology where we transmit radio waves. We transmit the signal of LRN.FM down to parts of Africa, down to all of North America. And we're trying to make that reach even larger. People in Africa have called into Free Talk Live and Freedom Fiends and other shows saying, hey, wow, we heard your show. This is amazing. And they felt like they got a lot of truth about America, speaking of that. Okay. And they love the message of liberty. People in Africa, people you picture the situation that they're in, but they already have these KU band satellites because it's a standard around the world that's used, and they're receiving this information. Now give these people a $30 Raspberry Pi, and suddenly they have not only access to LRN.FM and the Message of Liberty, they have access to Wikipedia. They have access to the best of the web. We could even, you could, I don't know if you're going to necessarily be able to transmit videos, but you could transmit podcasts to them. There's so much that they could get. Okay. And then they could figure out, maybe how to get in touch with these people via phone or whatever. Like I said, they receive the LRN signal and then they can call into the shows on LRN. It's amazing, with the live content in particular. This is huge. This is a great idea. This is an idea that needs people's support because it is totally free. Okay. Yes, there is kind of a centralized area where this information gets sent up, but then it's available for everybody at all times. And they're going to create very simple devices that would allow you to access you plug it into your, the MHCP port on your smartphone. And then, you essentially, you could connect to the Outernet and you could read all this stuff anywhere totally for free. I love it. This is the internet that people dreamed about in the 90s, where you had complete access to the world's information, not where you were doing your banking online or you were going for a better shopping experience, or anything like that, where you had access to the entirety of human knowledge because I want to learn. Outernet is making that a reality. Granted, it took 20 years for someone to figure out that was desirable and wanted. But here it is. And I'm really excited about it. Now, something that I don't think we want multiple implementations of these things. We want redundancy of the transmission of human knowledge. Okay? So this is not the next thing I'm about to talk about is not a replacement at all. Okay? It is an enhancement. And this is really exciting. So let's get into it. Now, this one has a name that it's been used for something else already. So please hear me out in what I'm about to tell you about. This is a company that was developed by or created by Steve Perlman. Some people may know Steve Perlman from his days he was a scientist at Apple Computers. He was a president of a division at Microsoft, but a division of. And he created a company called Artemis Networks. Now, what was Artemis doing? Artemis was working on changing the world. And the technology that they came up with is called PCell. Now, I got an article from Business Insider. I'm going to start reading some of that to let it explain a lot of what this is all about. Here's the technology. This is the Business Insider headline. That's going to make your phone's internet 1,000 times faster than 4G. And I have to give a thanks to Wes Bertrand, who talk about a Liberty luminary, top of the heap, in my opinion, as far as that goes. He actually introduced this to me, and I'm really thankful for it because this is exciting. In today's world, there's one area of technology that can almost never be fast enough: the wireless networks that power our mobile devices. Despite decades of advancements, we still lose signal when walking around in a big city like New York or San Francisco, or when attending a popular sporting event. Individual towers just can't handle blah, 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 blah. Okay. Our mobile internet sucks, right? But a hot startup with some major engineering talent is hoping to change all of that. Founded in 2011, Artemis is a startup working on PCell, a new wireless standard that it thinks could leapfrog 4G altogether. And they wouldn't just leapfrog 4G, because there's also 5G, which is getting implemented in areas, and it's probably going to leapfrog that too. Like any new potentially disruptive technology, PCell has a ton of hype and uncertainty around it. We've put together the following guide to PCell, and that's what we're going to read. What is PCell? Cell towers as we know them today can be visualized as giant umbrella tops. You deploy them, and they broadcast a bubble of reception that gets weaker as you get farther away. They have to be far enough away from each other so as not to cause interference, but close enough together that you can move between their areas of coverage and still have cell service. If you have too many people in one place, their data use can bog down a tower for everyone. Artemis's technology takes a very different direction. Rather than carefully spacing out a relatively small number of towers, Artemis wants to deploy a massive number of boxes the size of routers called P-Waves that will provide much better service to a much smaller area. Rather than working against interference, PCell embraces the collision of radio waves by combining the incoming signal from several of the P-Wave base stations. Each PCell user is given the equivalent of their own personal cell, hence the name PCell, which basically means getting full bars of LTE at all times becomes the new standard, while good, quote-unquote, signal strength means getting a signal that's as much as 1,000 times faster than what we're all used to. Besides speed and signal strength, it uses a lot less power than LTE. P-Wave radio uses a 1 milliwatt transmitter to deliver data compared with the 250 milliwatts used by most Wi-Fi radios and even larger amounts of power used by cellular towers. They also use less power on the user's end too. Phones that exist today would waste far less power searching for a signal, and one day PCell native devices could use parts that use even less power than the Wi-Fi chips built into devices like the iPod Touch today. So this is a really important point about PCell, is that you don't need to buy a new phone for this to get implemented, okay? This is not a marketing trick with PCell to where they're suddenly, they're like, oh, yeah, we've released this new PCell, but yeah, shit, you're going to have to go buy a new phone. Damn it, you're going to have to get that PCell rated iPhone. Now, of course, those kind of devices will come later because they'll be very advantageous to take full advantage of PCell. But no, you can use PCell right out of the gate. In fact, I'll read on here. To make adopting the technology as easy as possible, Artemis engineered PCell to work with regular LTE devices. So when it's ready, your iPhone or Android device should already be compatible. That also means you'll be able to use your phone on a PCell network and still have it work when you go somewhere that's still running regular LTE. How long until, this is the big question, right? How long until PCell's out there? The first consumer launch of PCell is scheduled for the fourth quarter of 2014, which we are about to enter, with the initial rollout taking place in San Francisco, of course. Artemis is working with a wireless partner to deploy P-Waves to as many as 350 rooftops in the city, which should be more than enough to blanket the city for the lucky few who get to try it out, that is. From there, Artemis says that full PCell deployment will begin at some point early in 2015. And so apparently, let's see, Steve Perlman claimed that the technology could be deployed in all major markets by the end of 2015, but we're doubtful. Even the most exciting technologies need to prove themselves before companies will be willing to spend billions building them out in their nationwide infrastructures. Okay, so we've got a lot of solutions here because this is not expensive to develop and it is not big to deploy. In fact, 350 boxes essentially cover San Francisco. How much would it take to cover, your average rooftops? Of course, granted, that's a lot different. Not every area of the world has skyscrapers or whatever you want to call it. But how much would it take to say, we mentioned earlier, like areas in Africa that would be able to make use of Outernet? What would it take to set up incredible, 1,000 times faster than 4G LTE signal in African towns? Not much. What if you strap these bad boys onto, say, Google's Project Loon? What do you got then? Oh, this is exciting. And it's being designed. I love the fact it's so rare, it seems, today in startup culture that things get designed to be backwards compatible. This is entirely backwards compatible. Just like Outernet is, both of these projects will more or less work out of the gate, or at least they will have devices that'll let you use what you have in your hands right now to access both of these things. And that's really important for market adoption. And if they work, how better connected will people be at that point? And it's not even, in America, I think people might even be too connected. But for the rest of the world, how inexpensive does it become for people to get the knowledge and the communication between each other to actually create genuine social change, which is the only thing that matters? Fuck politics. It'll be pretty damn cheap. People use the phrase the other 6 billion. And, possibly getting blockchain technology out to the masses. Well, here are your keys to that. In fact, Outernet can be used for blockchains. Ooh, yes, yes, yes. This is an area that we need to be looking at hard, and it's exciting that other people have already been looking at. I wanted multiple internets. Guess what? I'm getting them, and I love it. Now let's talk about some NXT. I'll be back with more. This is Sovryn Tech.
Are you searching for your soulmate? Someone you can trust, who will never betray you? Or cooperate with the NSA? Stop searching. With EasyDNS, you found a keeper. EasyDNS does it all. Domain names, web hosting, and managed WordPress hosting. EasyDNS stands up for your internet freedom, and with servers in Canada, they do not cooperate with the NSA. Go to easydns.com. You'll love their services or get a full refund. They guarantee it. And they accept Bitcoin. That's easydns.com. Hello, Mr.
Sovryn. Brian Sovryn. And yours?
Natalia. Care to play a game of roulette?
I'd love to.
Number and color?
69. Black.
As you wish. Tech Roulette.
It is time for Tech Roulette, where I cover the stories that you want me to talk about. And this week, of course, you can send me stories via, I don't think I'm going to be on Facebook much longer. I know I keep saying that, but this one actually kind of got asked of me. Facebook was one of the areas where it got asked quite a bit. But Twitter, Google+, SovrynTech@riseup.net, of course, the email address, BitMessage. There are plenty of ways to get in touch with me, to send me a story, to send me a subject that you want me to talk about. And I will get to it if I can. This is one of those rare times. I generally don't like to talk about subjects that I would describe as so hot, okay, where it is something that is like really fresh and there's still a lot of things to come out of it. I like to talk about it to where the solution has more or less been put into play, or where I can really offer you a solution. And maybe to some degree I have a solution here for this. And this is about NXT. Which, of course, NXT is the Bitcoin 2.0 technology, the cryptocurrency, along with a billion other things that it is. And it really is a billion other things. They just had, just this week, they released a digital goods store. So essentially, they released a Play Store, a Google Play Store built into NXT. It's not Google Play. It's not offering that content. This is for independent people to get, but you get the entirety of the profits. Okay, this is very much in response to things like Kindle Unlimited, where you have to go through Amazon and Amazon takes a cut. With the digital Play Store, or, with the digital goods store, I should say, that NXT devised, you get to keep all of the money. Okay, it's a really exciting development that they came up with. Now, NXT, again, it is a Bitcoin 2.0 technology, so it's more of a crypto platform than it is just a currency. But NXT... it's seemingly there's nothing that it can't do. It already has a digital asset exchange, or a distributed asset exchange. It has there's so much going on with it. There's the messaging system. There's games getting built into it. There's a million things. Which, by the way, the digital goods store that was created for NXT, I have every intention of releasing. All of my releases from Zomia Offline Games, all of my games that I'm developing will definitely be a part of that. They will be released through that because I think NXT is arguably, as far as what exists right now, what is out there and usable right now. It is the most exciting, blockchain technology out there, just bar none. Even with something that happened, something really terrible that occurred this week. And what happened is that someone did a crack on Bter. I hope I pronounce it. Some people say bitter. Some people say bitter. I don't know what they say. I say Bter, so pardon me. But BTER.com, one of the best exchanges. I think they're a great exchange, even though they really dropped the ball on this. But at least they came up and said, yes, we entirely dropped the ball. They're not like MT Gox, who says, oh, no, yeah, well, we didn't screw up. Oh, no, we didn't do anything wrong, blah, blah, blah. But people are freaking out about this because what happened is that 50 million NXT were stolen from BTER just a couple of days ago. And it's pretty crazy. The story, I'm reading a little bit here from CCN. The story has evolved from initial theft to ransom, to the hacker not fulfilling their end of the ransom, to bidding wars, to the blockchain rollback being offered and then taken off the table. And this is, so there was the guy that actually stole, or the guys, whatever, that stole all of the Next, that took all the NXT. I think NXT is the term we want to use. Put up a ransom for some odd, I don't know, like 100, I don't know, some ridiculous amount of Bitcoins. Okay, I think it was 100 Bitcoins. Yeah, that's what it was. 100 Bitcoins to say, okay, we'll give you 100 Bitcoins. You give us the NXT back, because BTER said, we can't handle this loss. And then when they did send they actually did collect the 100 Bitcoins. They sent it to the cracker. I don't want to use the word hacker. They keep using it here. And they got a very small percentage of it back. And then there was a kind of a back and forth between the cracker and BTER. And then pretty much at the end of the day, the cracker said, "Deal's off, good night," and he's gone. And we really haven't heard anything since. I want to read to you about this. Now, let's be very clear here. BTER is entirely at fault. What occurred here, the problem is that BTER was putting two-factor authentication on their servers. So even if you had two-factor authentication on your account, it didn't matter, because BTER didn't have two-factor authentication on their own servers. And so people were able, to crack into the servers, and they took the 50 million NXT, which equated to about $1 million USD at the time. Okay, so this is what occurs. It has nothing to do with NXT. NXT was not at fault, and there's no problem in the NXT code. This event could have, and this is a very important point, this event could have occurred to any coin listed on BTER. Okay? It is entirely BTER's fault that they did not secure the servers that NXT was on. Are we clear on that? That this could have happened to other things? And in fact, I want to read some more here, but I think this is really key to, I think the point that this makes, and I'm not being an NXT apologist in saying this. I think what this shows is, I think this was really coordinated. This was specifically designed, because they could have gone after any other coin, but it was specifically designed to hurt NXT. And I don't want to get conspiracy on you, but I think it's because there's been a lot of talk on the various sites like CCN, Coin Report, and others, where they come out and they say, hey, NXT is the most exciting altcoin out there. And it's not even fair to call it an altcoin, and they'll tell you that. But you can read across the internet, everybody is saying, anybody that has an opinion that gets posted on some kind of, valuable format is telling you this is really exciting. This is the one that has the opportunity. In fact, to quote, I think it was Ben Inger, who said, like Bitcoin, NXT is the only other coin out there that's value is essentially limitless because of how well it delivers on what it does. I think that this crack is an attack on a threat to a lot of other people's money, or to a lot of other people's development. Look, there's no point to talking about Ethereum. Do you understand? There's no point to talking about it. NXT does it all. It does it already. And I find it, it's insane to hear. I've heard news this week in just the past few days that there are people that I can't believe who have invested in Ethereum. And yet they won't give NXT 2 bits of their day. And I am lost at the reasoning behind that. I'm clueless as to the reasoning behind why that is. Okay. And I think this is more of this concern of nobody wants, NXT to take the stage that maybe it deserves, considering what it can do and how much it delivers. Because, and here's an interesting point. that I thought was made really well on Cointelegraph. Once again, referring to this crack, to this theft of 50 million NXT. Once again, this event is an example of why centralization does not meld well with decentralized currencies. NXT has its own decentralized exchange built in, which should make large-scale hacks such as this one impossible. Okay, NXT could have solved this problem on its own, but nobody wants to adopt the security measures that would have solved this. Okay, with the built-in exchange, this could have solved, if Bitcoin had this built-in exchange that NXT has, this could have solved the entire Mt. Gox issue. Wouldn't have happened at all. The price, just as of this would be Saturday morning, August 16th, 2014, the price of NXT is reflecting. It is dropping pretty hard, admittedly, and it is reflecting the lack of seeming confidence in NXT. And I understand. Okay, the same thing happened with Veracoin. Veracoin ran into a very similar issue. Okay, and what Veracoin did is they actually rolled back the blockchain. And what I mean is that they made it so that the blockchain, they scaled the blockchain back to where that event did not occur, where so many millions of Veracoin got stolen. NXT toyed with the idea, or didn't, toyed is a wrong word. They dallianced with the idea of doing that as well. And in fact, the developers very quickly, within a few hours, had a release, an NRS release, which is, essentially part of, how the software interacts with the blockchain, that would have done that to where that 50 million, that problem never, ever occurred. And the community, and I think wisely, said, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that rollback, because for Veracoin, that hurt. That scaled back its value quite a bit, and it lost a lot of confidence. And I don't like the idea that there's a dev team that's willing to go out there and just say, okay, well, we're going to do, it's a redo. We're going to pull a mulligan here. I hate that. I think that's nuts. And so I want to read something from a boss, Wieselink, hopefully I got his name right. He's pretty well involved in the next community, in the NXT community. And I'll read it here. As you already know, our devs released an update that would adjust the blockchain in such a way that only the BTER account would be affected. As it stands, the majority of NXT forgers has opted not to support this fork. The new version has already been rescinded, and the rollback will not happen. Of course, this whole discussion strikes at the core of what a crypto platform is about. Is there a point where a blockchain can be rolled back or not? I understand that the Veracoin devs have decided to do this in their case because 30% of coins were involved. Now, that's not nowhere near 30% are involved with NXT. Our situation and proposed solution were very different. The main difference that I see is that our core devs left the decision completely up to the forgers. That's you. They could have taken the decision to not even propose a fork at all, but decided to put this in the hand of where the decision power in a proof of stake system is. The stakeholders. That's you. Anybody that owns NXT is a stakeholder. Personally, I believe that this is the only real course they could have taken and stay neutral. The discussion had already veered strongly in this direction, and at a certain point, a choice needs to be put up to the stakeholders. Had the discussion been clear, no choice would have been needed, but this is not an official statement because we have no official speakers. This situation is terrible for all people who have lost their money. There is no way in which we can say otherwise. It's horrible, and no effort should be spared to hunt down the real culprit, the thief. I understand that BTER is on the case, and I hope they will succeed. The thief now has all of BTER's users on his tail. I believe, however painful this is, it should never be the role of the infrastructure to get involved in questions about the use of it. Furthermore, the error here lies with BTER, and they have clearly stated so. The only ones who should have any control over what happens to the blockchain lies with the stakeholders. Again, that's you. I believe the actions taken by the developers today reflect their belief in this model. I have heard many people who lost funds today echo this, and I believe that this reflects how strongly the NXT community believes and understands this principle. The last word in this certainly has not been spoken, nor has the theft of funds been solved. However, the community has given a very strong signal about how they feel the blockchain should be treated. I want to make clear that seeing that NXT does not have an official spokesman, my comments are made as a stakeholder and community member, not as speaking for NXT as a whole. There are surely people who will disagree, and I think this is right on. Like I always say, never follow the money, follow the attitude. And the attitude of the NXT community, the NXT stakeholders, the NXT dev team is phenomenal. Because you do just let the chips fall where they may. There are no mulligans, there are no redos, there are no pullbacks, there are no rollbacks. That's crazy to think that somehow we can turn back time. We can't. Okay, when something bad happens, you need to let the market react to that bad thing that's happening. The price drop that's occurring in NXT right now may be very well, and I can't confirm this, but I'm going to theorize, maybe very much due to the fact that the thieves are selling off and running through mixers. They're selling off the NXT, because I don't think this was about getting their hands on NXT. This was about weakening NXT's position as the number 3 altcoin, or the number 3 cryptocurrency, not altcoin, cryptocurrency, the number 3 cryptocurrency on the planet today via valuation. Okay, Ripple, it keeps switching sides with Ripple. Sure, fine, whatever. That's what this is about. This attack is in very much a compliment to NXT, because it is saying, we see this as a threat. We see this as valuable. We need, I'm putting now, that part I think is definitely true. But the part where I'm going to be putting words in the thief's mouth is, we need to do something about this. We need to put a stop to this. The battle, look, yes, there is so much VC money going into Bitcoin. Okay, it's a tall order to say that NXT at any given time would end up rising above the valuation, at least right now, of Bitcoin, in the immediate future. That's probably not going to happen. But the battle for the premier cryptocurrency that people will want to use, the value of, or the battle for the money of the internet, the battle for the money of the geeks is very much up in the air. You talk to a lot of smart people, including VCs, and they will say to you that, yes, cryptocurrencies are the future of money, but Bitcoin is not that future. I think this hack is, again, it's a reaction to what people see as a threat to the stakes that they hold in other things. My opinion. It's all it is my opinion. But I think if you ask a lot of people, they probably feel the same way. But this is really important. Can you roll things back? Can you do this? No. You let the chips fall where they may. I've described NXT as the Wild West of Bitcoin 2.0. Okay. And in the Wild West, yeah, you didn't do that. You just let it go. It's remarkable because so many people are coming out now. Oh, yeah, see NXT. Oh, what a piece of shit, when it had nothing to do with NXT. It had to do with, just foolishness on the part of B-Tear. Now, is this the end of NXT? No, because I don't think these people are going to hold that NXT. They're probably just going to, the marketing trick is done. They're going to end up selling it off. It'll get back into the hands of various people. And, and then NXT moves on, and it will continue to move on, and it'll just keep going forward. The dev teams haven't stopped developing. They're still going forward with a bunch of different plans that they have. And unlike other dev teams, the NXT dev team actually delivers things that come out. So, I think people wanted me to talk about this, like, hey, what does this mean for NXT? It doesn't necessarily mean anything bad. I think it just proves the point of the importance of there being altcoins out there. Now, granted, yeah, I mean, these people walked away with $1 million. Are these, are hackers going to go find these crackers? Probably. And I will keep you posted on what happens with that. It does seem to be interesting things do happen when you start putting up bounties, and I imagine bounties have been put up to find these people, and it has already solved multiple cases, like the case of Roger Ver in recent history, where, a bounty gets put up, find this guy and get the stuff from him. And, no one's talking about killing anybody, of course, but just, find this and let's get some restoration out of it. And that occurs, and it has been successful by and large thus far in the crypto space. And I would assume the same will happen here. So a lot more to develop from this story, but if you want the initial points, there they are. This is not a lack, in my opinion, bottom line, this is not a lack of confidence in NXT, it's a bolstering of it. I'll be back with more. This is Sovryn Tech.
There's a lot of confusing information out there about Bitcoin mining. Customers have been burned by companies taking their money on pre-orders for Bitcoin mining equipment, only to receive their equipment late and miss out on opportunities to mine Bitcoins. But that doesn't mean Bitcoin mining is impossible. You just have to find an honest company to do business with. If you want to mine Bitcoins and you want to do it now, no pre-orders, no waiting. Look into the Antminer products from Bitmain. Their competitively priced Antminers are in stock and shipped from the US as soon as you pay. You could buy an Antminer today and be mining Bitcoins tomorrow. The Antminer line offers the best mining power per dollar currently available. 20% of the mining power in the Bitcoin network is contributed by Antminers. Not only that, but Bitmain is committed to support. You can get tech support and warranty service over the phone by calling 844-BITMAIN. For commercial accounts, they'll even travel to your data center to install your equipment. Get all the details at bitmaintech.com. That's bitmaintech.com.
You're a lucky man, Mr. Sovryn. Not many win so well at the game of chance.
That's because it's not a game of chance, Natalia. It's a game of choice.
Game of choice.
It is time for Game of Choice, where we cover a game that maybe needs a good reinstall, maybe a classic that might have been forgotten, or maybe a modern game that just got forgotten because it fell through the cracks of the deluge of AAA releases that come out seemingly, by the week almost. All right, real quick before I get into this week's game. Back in the day, the late 90s, the late 80s and the 90s, you used to be able to have really played like everything. You could talk to somebody and you really could have played like every game. Today, I don't know how that's even possible. There's no, and I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that there's no way. You really have to pick and choose. There's no way everybody's played every game. And in fact, when somebody says that they've played all this different stuff, unless they work for IGN or, PC Gamer or something, because they get paid to play them, that's their job, I don't believe you. and if I were you, I wouldn't believe them either, because it just seems to really be able to play them well. There's just not enough time in the day unless you literally took all day playing it. It's impossible. So moving on, this week's game, this is a classic that I'm going to bring to you. And this is a classic that I originally played. I think a lot of people think I'm anti-Apple. I'm not. I used to be a huge fan of Apple. I've repeatedly said that the Mac G4 Cube was my favorite computer of all time, still is. And I had as a teenager, I had the very first iMac that came out in 97, 98. That nice, that teal colored iMac. They didn't offer all the other colors at the time. I had that. And that beauty came with OS 8, Mac OS 8 in it, and it came with a game. And the game was called Nanosaur. And this is really important because at the time, that was Windows, claim to fame is that, oh yeah, we do all the gaming, we do 3D gaming, we're way ahead of the curve on everybody as far as that goes. And so here was Nanosaur, this 3D game where you played the part of a dinosaur with effectively a wrist gauntlet that could fire, various types of, projectiles, weaponry. And it was a game that actually had quite the story for it too, where, you had it was called the Fusion Blaster. And not only that, but you also had a jetpack So picture that, this little, kind of a bipedal dinosaur running around on this, on prehistoric Earth and with a jetpack. It was pretty wild. Also, you saw various other dinosaurs involved in it. But it wasn't like really prehistoric Earth, because I think it took place way in the future. Like, let me see here. 4122. Okay. Yeah. 4122 is when it took. And it was, the dinosaurs had pretty much, the backstory goes is that you had humans recreated dinosaurs a la, Jurassic Park. And they messed with genetic engineering, and it ended up to where the dinosaurs, because of a plague, kind of like the simian plague of Planet of the Apes, right? A plague, wipes out humanity. And so dinosaurs are left, and dinosaurs are intelligent, and they are running the earth. And, some terrible things occur. So there, it's this really deep story, interbreeding, all this wild stuff that occurs in it. It's a really basic game, admittedly. There was a sequel as well, Nanosaur 2. And I think in that one, you actually got to be the pteranodon. So you got to fly around, or pterodactyls. So you got to fly around quite a bit in that. But this was really cool, and you can still get your hands on it. Okay. There's a link in the show notes for it. You got to pay a pretty price for it, and I haven't seen it on any torrent sites. So if you want to check this one out, you are going to have to purchase, but it is available for Windows, even though I originally played it on Mac OS 8. Isn't that exciting? So check it out, Nanosaur. Just a fun 3D world type thing, especially during the time of Mario 64. It was a nice shakeup. I'll be back with more. This is Sovryn.
Time now for 90 Seconds on Sex with Dr. Paul.
We've known for years that men who smoke cigarettes have a greater chance of getting erectile dysfunction by the time they're 50 or 60. This is so well documented that cigarette packs should have an illustration of a limp penis on the warning label. What we haven't known until now is that cigarette smoking can impact the length of time that it takes young men in their early 20s to reach maximum sexual arousal. That's because the nicotine in cigarettes negatively impacts how long it takes any guy to reach his maximum sexual arousal, regardless of his age or how long he's smoked. So while most young men who smoke cigarettes are still able to get erections, it's their overall sexual response that's being impacted by the cigarette smoking. When researchers have given nicotine gum to healthy, non-smoking young men, they found that the nicotine significantly impacted the men's sexual response. They've also found that smokers of all ages who were able to quit smoking had a 5-fold improvement in the amount of time it took them to reach maximum sexual arousal over men who kept smoking. So while it's the tar and cigarette smoke that will eventually compromise the circulation in your penis, it's the nicotine in cigarettes that starts to erode your overall sexual response from the very first time you light up.
For more, visit 90secondsonsex.com.
You are quite the man, Mr. Sovryn. Are you busy tonight?
Natalia, if you'll excuse me, I just received a very important email.
Later then, Mr. Sovryn. Important email.
It is time for Important Email, where I cover the emails that get sent in to me through the various channels, sovereigntech@riseup.net, of course, being the email address. And I'm going to try and obviously you can send it to me via Twitter as well. I'm going to try and get through a few emails here because I have quite the backlog. Maybe I'll do a special where it's just all emails in the near future to hopefully get through some of them, because I know a lot of people are dying for me to get to them, and I can't always... I don't want to say I'm a busy guy. I can't, because I think that's insulting to tell someone else that you're busy. I just can't, I can't always respond. I don't always have the ability to respond personally as much as I want to each email. But before I start reading on one of these emails, I do want to say that the emailer from last week, I believe, where we talked about how he left the military. I did get some emails about that as well, but I will get to those. But the main thing I want to say is that I had asked for the Sovereign Tech listeners to, give a show of support and a round of applause. And I've got so many emails over the past week and even, direct messages on Twitter just saying applause, for the, for the listener. And so listener, yes, thank you very much for that very difficult decision that you made. And the entire Sovryn Tech audience, I assure you, is very much behind you. And they proved it in the just so many emails and tweets that got sent to me. So there you go. Let's get into some other emails here. Let's see. There's this one. And of course, I leave you anonymous unless you specifically say to me, say my name, say my name. I just wanted to let you know that the poem you read on this week's show was very special to me as well and choked me up a little to hear you read it. Now, that poem was the one I read, maybe 3 episodes back. That was about, letting your not playing small in the world. And I'm glad that I got a lot of emails about that one too, of people saying that they really needed to hear that and that was very inspirational for them. So let's see. I also appreciated your explanation of what you meant by complex life. I was more referring to perhaps to organisms that organize tissues into organs and perhaps systems, aka there could be some trilobite type organisms in the oceans of Titan. Yes, totally possible. My definition of complex life, of course, was the idea that they had, to where they were acting beyond instinct. Okay. But instinctual, relatively simplistic animal life like a trilobite, I am absolutely open to those existing on Titan. In fact, I'm open to, admittedly, I am open to life being on Europa. That's almost cliche to say these days. A lot of people talk about that. And there was that great movie, the Europa Report, where they find, I've already talked about it on the show, so I can give it away. They find something that looks similar to an octopus on Europa. Admittedly, I am open to that as well. That there's some kind of animal life, perhaps, on Europa. So yes, I am open to that. But as far as like creatures that are, more thinking creatures, that we would attribute a lot of intelligence to, even like something like a dolphin, I am not open to that being very common in the universe, let alone the solar system. Anyway, okay, my company is already starting to look in this direction with chemical engineering that instead of using, I also think, I skipped a sentence. I also think you are spot on with the idea that technology should be looking to imitate life. My company is already starting to look in this direction with chemical engineering that instead of using traditional methods of chemical synthesis, we are finding it is much more efficient to synthesize them using genetically modified organisms. We are also getting into the idea of cradle-to-cradle engineering, where we don't just look at the life cycle of a product from raw materials to the end of usefulness, but rather from raw material to raw material, that, like the food web, where every organism's death is another organism's beginning, we link all products like this in order to make sustainable systems. Ooh. Now we're talking. I was very excited to read this email because to hear, I'm not the only person that thinks of this stuff. Okay. I'm glad I can be a sounding board for a lot of these ideas. But this is exactly the direction I think that we need to be looking technologically. And it is very exciting to hear about a company that is trying to pull this off. That's absolutely fantastic, to be looking in that direction. And that's good because honestly, sometimes when I talk that far out, admittedly, I feel like I'm nuts, and I get plenty of emails from people saying that I'm nuts. Okay. Believe me. Or I get phone calls on Free Talk Live or wherever. There's always somebody ready to say, wow, you're like way left field, man. You just, that's too far. And clearly it's not too far because there's already industry. There's already companies out there giving these things a shot. And so that is very comforting to hear. Once again, I really appreciate your show and continue to listen in reverse chronological order, which makes it kind of fun to stumble upon upcoming games that have already come out and predictions I already know the outcome of from listening previously. You have gotten me stoked on NXT. I'm very glad to hear that. Please continue to be stoked. I hope that the segment that we talked about NXT continues people to be very interested and to see the viability of that crypto platform. And have me and my brother trying to design a totally anonymous social network for the MadeSafe network. This is a very busy guy. I have a lot of respect for this guy. He sent quite a few emails, and he's been very gracious in his specific donation type, and I really love it. And I will get to more of this gentleman's emails in the future. And that's great. In fact, I've noticed a lot of people listening to this show in reverse chronological order. Like I will see, I can see some stats, not a whole lot. I don't have all the stats for all my shows. So my number, when I know that, say, 1,200 to 1,500 people listen to the show a week, there may be significantly more that I just can't register. Okay. So maybe I could call that number higher, but I'm going to run off of what I know. I know a lot of podcasts like to, boast higher numbers when they don't have any proof of those at all. I like to run off of what I certainly know, and those are the best that I can say. But what I'm saying is that I notice a lot of listeners, like inside of a week, and I'm impressed. Of course, when you can, listen to podcasts faster than normal, that, that allows for getting in a lot more podcasting, right? Or podcast listening. I'll notice like in 1 week, people listen to like 30 episodes in 1 week. I'll just go, wow, it's like these people just binge, and I'm honored. Believe me, I'm beyond honored. And you'll probably notice also when you listen to the show in reverse chronological order, you will notice that my opinions have changed from time to time. They can, like my opinion on privacy. At the very beginning of the show, I told people, look, privacy's dead. This stuff's, it's over. And that may well still be true, even though I have, told people, yes, let's use encryption technologies. Let's try and take our privacy back, yada, yada. And really what that's all about. And because if you are listening backwards, which I've noticed a lot of people do, including this emailer, what that's all about, my push for using encryption technologies in general is to just make it expensive for them. That's really it. It's just, if you really want to, that's how the market works. That's what people say is that you make it, you eliminate the viability for people to deal in, in the market, in the world. And so if you can make it so expensive for the NSA to do what they do, then maybe you can start making a dent in their abilities because it just costs too much. And so if a bunch of people, use encryption technologies, maybe that'll happen. But then maybe even that's fruitless. And I'm going to save that whole conversation for Hacksec this week. So I don't want to get into that anymore. So anyway, emailer, thank you for that. Thank you for the kind words that you put forth. And I really, it is really exciting to hear other people thinking in that direction to where we are creating sustainable technology. And it's really great. Honestly, it's great for me to hear that I'm not insane. So thank you. Because I got a particular email, a very short one from someone, and maybe they were being joking. I'm going to hope that they're being, or I shouldn't say I'm going to hope. I'm open to them being joking, but in case they're serious, the email effectively said, because last week I talked about the idea of, hey, let's slow down and let's consider how the internet is affecting society. Okay. And, or is it the best implementation that we can do? Now, maybe there was a misunderstanding of what I was trying to say or what, but the emailer essentially said, look, hey, if we slow down on the internet, the government might catch up. So let's go full forward. Let's just, breakneck speed on developing everything with the internet. And because again, or the government's going to catch up. And then, he called me a Luddite. So, which I've gotten a lot recently. Quite a few people have emailed me and said, I'm a Luddite for questioning the internet. How dare you? And fine. If you think I'm nuts about it, then you think I'm nuts, but when technologies come around that have only been around for a very short period of time, okay, and the internet Yes, it was created in the 60s with ARPANET, blah, 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 blah. But the internet has really only been a major part of society, understand, for barely 10 years, barely a decade. 2003 is generally the point where I say, okay, it was no longer the domain of the geeks anymore, the internet. And with that in mind, look at what's happened. The internet, yes, while it has freed so many, it has freed so much commerce, it has allowed for things like Bitcoin, it has done so many incredible things, it has also created tremendous amounts of control on the part of the government over us. Technology is a double-edged sword. That's all that I'm trying to point out. And someone on Twitter said, it's like, I don't think you're a Luddite. You're just pointing out that technology is a double-edged sword. And I appreciate him saying that. And that's all that I'm saying. And unlike other tech shows, I am willing to talk about that other edge where maybe this isn't such a good idea. Okay? I want these things, some of these things to develop forward. There are plenty of things that I don't want to develop forward while there are still governments on this earth, or while I am still, or while at least, the entirety of the planet is under the purview of governments. There are things I don't want to go forward. I am not excited about, automaton or, android bodies that we can get, robot bodies that our brains can get uploaded in while there are still governments around. I am not excited about that. I admit it. That doesn't make me a Luddite. I am okay with with transhumanist ideas. I am looking forward to transhumanist ideas. I am not looking forward to people with control switches for those transhumanist implementations. So please understand where I'm coming from on that. Okay? Let's see if I can get in one more email. Okay. I'd love to hear you talk about what's going on in New Hampshire. Free Talk Live has a habit of saying move 20,000 activists, of course, that being the Free State Project. I'm not a fan of going to jail over chalk. LOL. Yes, I am not a fan over going to jail about chalk either, or I couldn't care less about chalk. Do you think the Free State is better than non-U.S. options? It's a big goal of mine to get money and move somewhere more free. Until finding this show, Sovereign Tech, and Free Talk Live, I thought that I had to be outside the U.S., but I would be happy to be wrong. Okay, I'll make my thoughts on this pretty clear, and these thoughts are shared by others, though I don't want to put words in their mouth. If New Hampshire doesn't work out, now whatever that means, okay, is up to, that's solely up to everybody. Everybody's definition of freedom, or the freedom that they want within a certain time frame, is different from everyone else's. If New Hampshire doesn't work out, and one of the things that I personally want to see as far as New Hampshire working out, is that if there is not a clear sign of secession or of perhaps even heavy decriminalization, now one could say both of those require political actions of some kind. If there is not like a large mass of, or how about this? If there's not a large mass of people that actually want to get together and just kind of refuse to, take part in the system, then yeah, I'll probably go somewhere else. New Hampshire is, unless, certain people get their way, was it Tim Draper in California, where they split California into 6 states, which I could talk about that more in a future episode if you'd like. Maybe one of those states would be of interest to me to find more freedom. Okay. But yeah, I enjoy the freedoms that I've gained in New Hampshire, but when you look at things like what's happening in Ferguson, Missouri, and other areas, it's getting pretty clear that the U.S. is no longer being viable, and that it may be beneficial to go elsewhere. But I really do. I want to see I'd love to see some kind of secession for New Hampshire. I'd love to be able to walk around, because right now I have the conscience of the fact that I am a citizen of a country and that I am paying taxes into a country that is killing thousands of people per day for no good reason around the world. Really, there's no good reason. There isn't. Okay. And so, I don't like being a part of that. I would like to be elsewhere, and where I know that those tax dollars are not going in that direction. So getting the 20,000 activists here, yeah, that'd be fantastic. That'd be really exciting. That'd be great. And maybe then they could do, because one of the tricks that I think actually would work, and Ian Freeman, the main host of Free Talk Live, I think has attempted this at times, is if you got a bunch of people in one area, okay, and they, one area of real estate, and they bought, say, like a bunch of houses on this one street, and they all just decided to stop paying taxes. I think that might be somewhat of a viable form of activism. Okay, because there's the argument for that, the idea that you have to pay property taxes falls really flat once you really have the conversation. That they are really a form of slavery. Property taxes are. So, that's an interesting idea. I'd love to see that sort of thing get implemented in New Hampshire. So as far as in the U.S., yes, if you are dead set on making sure you are in the U.S., New Hampshire is the place. But it's always in the back of my mind, and I recommend it be in the back of anyone's mind, that at some point the U.S. may get so bad. And again, Ferguson's a great case of that, along with many other cases, that the U.S., just may not be viable. And you may, it may just have to economically starve itself to death, or, authoritarianly starve itself to death. I don't mean the people. I mean the imaginary idea of the government, of the authority structures that exist within it. I think it's pretty important to discuss really the only way to achieve a genuine, in my opinion, because one of the taglines for the Free State Project is liberty in our lifetime. I think the only way to really achieve liberty in your lifetime, like a real anarchist society, is intentional community, which is what the Free State Project is, but I think it might even be too large for an intentional community that could pull that off, because it would have to be an intentional community that could, be able to filter people out or whatever, because we're talking about an anarchist society. That means there's no politics at all. And certainly in New Hampshire, there's plenty of politics, whether I like it or not. And it's generally, I don't like it. And so intentional community is the way to go. And so, maybe people could, get on a cruise ship, or, it'd be great if we had spaceships, or, an island, and they could just go there and, live out their anarchist dream. That's really, it's increasingly seemingly to be the only way to achieve genuine liberty in our lifetime, because so many people, it's not that government gets forced upon them. It just seems like people, they want it. And by and large, no matter how much you educate them, they want it, whether it's government or religion or what. They're desirous of having somebody over them. And that's a tough battle, and then there's people, we'll outbreed them, we'll have babies, and then the babies will change everything. And well, that's incredibly unfair to put that kind of pressure on a child, to expect them to change the world when you didn't do shit. You raised them well. Well, that's great. But really, do something real. I don't see that as a viable way to get liberty in your lifetime, if that is the goal. Maybe we'll have it in 400 years. I don't know. But yes, I would keep non-U.S. options very, very highly in mind. I'll be back with more.
Hey, everybody, it's Stephanie. I am the Sovryn Tech producer. But did you know I am also a voiceover artist? Yes, it's true. I make audiobooks, commercials for your business. I narrate explainer videos. Pretty much any audio project that you can think of, I'm probably willing to work on it, or I have worked on it in the past. And if you want to hear some samples of my previous work, or you want to find out a little bit more about what I do, then I encourage you to check out my voiceover website, which is smvoice.info, smvoice.info. Now back to Sovryn Tech.
Agent Sovryn, go to this webpage and follow. What kind of webpage is this? Is that Natalia? I better go to the
Website of the Week.
It is time for Website of the Week, where I cover a website that may be useful, may be terrible, may be fun. This week, this is something that's pretty useful, I think. I like it a lot. I do recommend that if you have AdBlock Plus, or some kind of, Java, like NoScript, some kind of JavaScript eliminator, or controller, maybe is the better phrase. I recommend running that when you go there, because it is just loaded with ads. But that is how a lot of these sites work, and why a lot of people make them, and get their money off of it. And this website is anything2mp3.com. Now that's the word anything, the number 2, and then mp3.com. Now the beauty of this website doesn't give you a whole lot of options, okay? And you can tell from the name that it's designed to turn something into an MP3. The beauty of this website is that it automatically gives you the high quality version. Some people want like a low quality, like some websites that do this sort of thing where, let's describe what it does first. It will allow you to, from YouTube, here's the beauty, SoundCloud and Vimeo, all three of those sources, it will allow you to convert. You put in the URL for what you're trying to rip, and it will rip it and give you an MP3 to download. And so the MP3 that you get is already high quality, because some of these websites, and there's a bunch of them out there that do kind of similar. This is the only one I know of that does all three of those, which is why I'm highlighting it. There are some out there that will allow you to choose like what quality of MP3 you want. This already automatically, pretty much does the highest or, high quality. At least it sounded really good to me. Like the quality of it, of the ripping sounded fantastic. And these are very handy because especially like with SoundCloud where, it's kind of funny, right? Okay. Where some people don't let you download on SoundCloud and it's like, oh, well, I can go to SoundCloud and listen to it as often as I want, but I can't just download it and use it offline. Now, of course, they're doing that for tracking purposes. They want to be able to show, even though they know they're not going to make a dime off of it, they want to show how often it's been listened to. Okay. And that is part of showing their value and their viability as, say, a band or an artist or whatever, to record labels or management, etc. Okay. But it is, at the end of the day, it's ridiculous that you can't just download the file because they're putting it out there for free. What do they expect, right? And so there's a lot of great, like SoundCloud is loaded with not just, I think it's, first off, I think it's probably the best social media platform out there today. I love using it. I have, at least somewhat of a conversation with a lot of listeners on SoundCloud and they can ask me questions or make comments right within the sound. It's fantastic. So I love it for podcasting, but it's also, its main thing is for music. And there's a lot of great, really sexy, really hot mixes on there that you can get your hands on. And with this, you can download them and put them in Google Play Music or, Google Play All Access, or you take your pick, or YouTube. I've used clips from YouTube in the past to, very, very short ones or whatever. Not that I give an ass about, I could care less about copyright. I couldn't care less about copyright. That's the proper way to say that phrase. And I've implemented them into the show. And that's exactly what I would use is a website like this that would convert it into MP3. And then I could just, mix it in. Okay. So this is really handy. And to allow for, Vimeo as well. Actually, this is the first website I've seen that allows you to do it with Vimeo. I used to have to use software, and I think I might have done it for Software of the Week in the past. I used to have to use, JDownloader? I think that's what it was called. I haven't used it in a long time. And also this solves a problem. This is really great for like Chrome, because Google has really gone crazy with keeping you from being able to download anything via audio or video from, and this isn't going to help with the video, from YouTube. Okay. And so to have this is, really having a website like this is really handy to keep around. Now, again, it is loaded with ads all over the place on this website. So be careful where you click. Okay. But you're hard pressed to find websites, that do all three of these, that allow you to rip MP3s, or get an MP3 file from all of these websites that isn't just loaded up with ads all over the place on it. Okay. So just fair warning on that. But this, again, really, really handy to have. And because, you can get, especially from SoundCloud, sometimes people put whole albums up there. So maybe it's a nice, easy way to get your hands on those. Yeah, check it out. Anything to the number 2, anything to mp3.com. I love it.
Hey, look! Got an energy spike. Hold on! Launch. Bombing the Narn back to the Stone Age wasn't enough for you?
Then we heard it. The sound of something terrible being born.
This is madness.
Station 3 to Commander Ivanova.
Centauri have launched a full-scale assault.
Time is come and gone! It's our turn now!
2 million tons of spinning metal, all alone in the night. A world where empires rise and fall, where dreams are born and die, where war and hatred are challenged by love and faith. In the third age of mankind, an age plagued by an evil empire that seeks to destroy humanity. It is our last, best hope for peace, for victory, for freedom. It is Babylon 5.
Babylon 5 is available for download on your favorite torrent site. See it now to experience the greatest show in television history. Babylon 5. Who knew you could ride a bike so well?
I don't know if I can get us away from that helicopter. Don't you have a gun?
Oh, there's never a need for lethal force. I'll handle this.
How did you do that?
We'll be fine. A quick hack solves everything.
Hacksec.
It is time for Hacksec, where we talk hacking and security. And, oh boy, this week we will finally get to stories that have been, making the rounds quite a bit and causing quite a scare, sometimes justifiably, sometimes not justifiably, around the internet from various sources. And that includes BadUSB, along with other things. So let's get right into it. BadUSB. This is crazy. Essentially, what you have is that BadUSB is you have a chip, okay, that communicates with, from let's say it's a flash drive. Okay, you have the flash memory. That flash memory has data on it that you want to read on your computer. Okay, between the computer, the USB port, and the flash memory itself, there is effectively a bit of memory, a chip that will allow for that communication to occur, for you to access the data that's on the flash memory from your computer that the USB flash drive is connected to. Okay, that chip has firmware that has its own software, and what's been released by a couple of great hackers out of Germany is that firmware is not looked at by security software. Okay. And that firmware can be rewritten, and that firmware can actually run roughshod on your computer once it's connected. And it doesn't have to be a flash drive. It could be a keyboard. It could be a mouse that has this. And then that firmware, what that firmware could essentially do is it will go right to your computer. Again, your antivirus, malware scanners, none of that stuff's going to look for this, because the very nature of USB is for it to be open and flexible so that multiple devices can connect to a multitude of devices. That firmware could open up your web browser, take you to a website. Now, if you're looking at it while it did it, then you'd be okay, but this is the potential, okay? And then go to that website, and that website will automatically download malware onto your computer, and then you're fucked. And people think, oh, that sounds crazy. This has got to be more of that, scare tactics that the news engages in, where they tell you the sky is falling, but really it's not that bad. No, guess what? It's that fucking bad. BadUSB, it's bad. It can do everything. Now, the fortunate thing with I'm going to talk about a few other different security holes here. The fortunate thing about it is that we haven't seen a whole lot of this getting done in the wild. However, some people say that Stuxnet, which is what infected Iranian nuclear systems or developments, was actually an implementation by some government body, all this is kind of theoretical, of BadUSB. So there's a chance that it's been known about for a really, really long time. And if you think it hasn't been used, naivete. So also there was something, I forget the name of it, begins with a C, but there was something that was talked about in the various Snowden revelations that sounded very similar to BadUSB. So it's a good bet that this has been used here and there. And again, keep in mind, this is stuff that could potentially take over your computer. Okay. And it could be as simple as plugging in a USB keyboard. When people were saying, yeah, let's go back to, PS2, not the video game system, but the protocol, if we can go back to PS2, the connector, I should say, not the protocol, then, that'd be fine. Yeah, well, that's not that outlandish. And because there's not a really good solution for this. In fact, the only solution is really to close down the firmware. But then you lose that flexibility that made USB so popular. Okay, so that's not really viable either, because the whole reason we like to use USB is shot in the foot. All right, and to say nothing of what this means for dead drops, which if you're not sure what dead drops are, I think you can go to deaddrops.com. You can Google it. You can find out about that. But there was something I was excited about. Now it's something that it's like, oh, well, forget that one. Let's see what else came out of this. Is all coming from Black Hat and Defcon. We've got more proof that people can hack into the Wi-Fi, via the Wi-Fi or in-flight entertainment systems, that people could actually take control of a plane while the plane is in the air using an Android device. There was more proof of that this year. There was proof. This is a big one that's going around. There is where people could take hardware now some of these require hardware hacks as to where the person would have to actually get their hands on your device to be able to do this, but they could take control of your drop cam, which is this live camera system that's becoming very popular in homes. They could take control of your Nest. And you say, well, if they take control of these things, who cares? You're missing the point. These devices are connected to your Wi-Fi, to your networks at home, which means that they are gateways to the important stuff. They may not be important in and of themselves, but they are gateways to the important things in your life, in your digital life. Banking information, whatever. Okay. Now they say, well, the person would have to break in, and if they're going to break in, the last thing they're going to touch is my Nest or my drop cam. No, they don't have to break in. In fact, this is something I want you to consider. Buying electronics, not from the retailer, not from the direct retailer or from the direct producer, buying electronics from, say, eBay. How hard is it for them to just, pull something similar to BadUSB to where they essentially, hardware crack your drop cam that you buy on eBay or your laptop or your Nest or whatever, because you're not buying it from Google. You're buying it from a quote unquote trusted seller. And maybe then they all, who knows? I mean, this could get really, really bad when you take it all the way. So I'm actually kind of to the point where it's like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to buy. Now, granted, we know I don't know if I'm going to buy from eBay. Now, granted, we know the NSA is intercepting shipments. We are aware that this occurs. This is a proven fact. This is not questioned. This is a proven fact that the NSA intercepts packages, and they could intercept them from Newegg just as much as someone could do an install, do an intercept and install, various bugs or whatever into the hardware. They could do that at eBay too. So it can happen at Newegg. It can happen all over the place. You might not want to buy electronics at all. Woo! Just a thought. I'm still buying electronics. Let's see. Then there was the Tor vulnerability. I'm not going to get into that. There's vulnerabilities found with, antivirus software in and of itself. There's been so many things coming out that came out of, there's a link in the show notes where you can look at a bunch of other ones. So many things that came out of Black Hat and Defcon that, while yes, some of them we've never seen implementations of them in the wild. In fact, there was more about how to take control of a car, any car newer than 1995, so 1996 and up. And people said I was nuts. I was requested to be taken off of shows because I said, how dare they put computers in cars? This is a security issue. Oh, apparently I'm not so crazy when at Black Hat people are taking over your car. Anyway, I want to read something here. I want to read this, and this is from Steve Gibson, and he talked about it because this was in his response to everything that was discovered at Black Hat and at, and the upcoming Defcon. And so this is from the latest episode. I'll put a link in the show notes. In the appendix, you can find a link in the show notes. So I wanted to, this is Steve Gibson talking of Security Now. So I want to wrap this up with just a quick comment. It's been on my mind after looking through the list of presentations at Black Hat and DEF CON and in the wake of the Snowden revelations and knowing what it means for today's actually delivered security to be as soft as it is. I've used the term porous before, where you look really carefully at OpenSSL, which so many sites are using, and you find mistakes. You look really close at pretty much anything which is sufficiently complex and you find mistakes. I mean, that's the history of this. They look at automotive security systems and the networks now that are operating our cars, and they find mistakes that allow them to open the doors and roll down the windows and apply the brakes and deploy the airbags, unfortunately. Mistakes. And then you look at the NSA and their budget and their interest in finding these mistakes. And I think we're fooling ourselves if we believe, despite the fact that the math is absolutely perfect, it's the implementation that is the problem. Mistakes. Little things like, ooh, look, that random number generator we're not so sure about. And they may have helped that get chosen to be the standard. Over the last few years, we've seen example after example. He's referring to the NSA. And so I just wanted to wrap this 9th year of the Security Now podcast, where over the course of these years, we've really sort of developed a much, I think, deeper sense of reality. Some people want to go hide in a cave. Others of us are going to go crusading around with squirrels, that's his security implementation, and keep trying to solve these problems in a simple and secure way. But at the same time, I'm just betting that inside the depths of the NSA, they're not worried because they understand that their ability to focus on the porosity, the holes of the security we're actually implementing in the field gives them an edge. They may very well have already found the mistakes, for example, in BadUSB. There's some supposition that Stuxnet may have been propagated that way. I mean, they could certainly have arranged to have compromised firmware and drives that everyone just assumes they're fine if they're able to physically get them into the channel somehow so that they drift into those factories. So, I mean, I don't think this is gloom and doom. I think this is maybe a dose of constructive reality. It's that we should not imagine that we can really raise barriers that a super well-funded, determined attacker with good intentions, arguably, like the NSA, are unable to penetrate. I think they probably can. I think it's worth us continuing to try to close the pores in security. Clearly, we're finding mistakes and we're fixing them. We are learning. We are way better today than we were 9 years ago at the beginning of the podcast. We as a society, we as a network of people. Unfortunately, we're seeing new things like the Internet of Things. This is your interconnected home, where people are launching products with half-baked security. But notice how quickly we're now catching up and saying, whoa, 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 whoa. We need some standards for light bulbs and pasta makers before we can get up to mischief if we have an unsecured pasta maker in your kitchen. So overall, I'm encouraged, but at the same time, I'm having to acknowledge, given the presentations we see at conferences like Black Hat and DEF CON, security is hard. And there really is. There's an inherent porosity to big, complex system. There generally is a way in. Thank you, Steve Tiberius Gibson. That's not necessarily his real name. But you prove the point of what I've been trying to say for some time now on Sovryn Tech, that we need to go, in his own words, here's one of the greatest security professionals on the planet, we need to go, whoa, 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 whoa. Let's take a minute and look at this before we go further. You rush into these things, you don't know what you're going to get. And I don't want to rush into them, including the pasta makers. So, yes, the sky is really falling, but then maybe we can develop a technology that'll raise it back up. Harp? I'll be back with more. This is Sovryn Tech. Hey, everybody. I really appreciate all of you that listen to Sovryn Tech. I hope you have as much fun listening to the show as I do making it. And hey, if you have a good time listening or learn something from listening, you can donate to the show. Just look in the show notes at sovryntech.com. There you'll see addresses for Bitcoin, Blackcoin, Next, Litecoin, whole slew of ways to donate to the show. And believe me, I'm not going to complain if you only send 2 millibits, or what equates to $2, unlike some people. But, also you can donate via PayPal using the affiliate links on the left-hand side of sovryntech.com. And oh yes, please feel free to use those affiliate links. You can also help the show by circling me on Google+, following me on Twitter, or following Sovryn Tech on SoundCloud. Anything you can do to help, believe me, it helps. So I love all of you, and thank you so much for listening. Now let's get back to more Sovryn Tech. Well, looks like we made it out of the country. Good driving. Let's find some place to relax.
Somewhere with a nice big bed, I think. Let me pull up an app.
Sounds good to me.
Software of the Week.
It is time for Software of the Week. And, I want to just put a little cap on the last segment. What is the answer to this? What do we do about this? Do we just do like Steve Gibson said, where we just keep fixing, plugging the holes? Do we just keep fixing everything? The real answer is education. The real answer is knowing. The real answer is, knowledge. While I'm open to the interpretation of knowledge is pain, certainly knowledge is power. And so, that's really it. Is just be informed, be aware, make informed decisions. That's what it's all about. Okay. That's how you solve everything, is acting upon, an informed opinion or an informed decision, whatever. So with that in mind, the need for knowledge, what is perhaps our greatest store of knowledge today? Wikipedia. But some people think, boy, that Wikipedia looks kind of like a boring website. And that's not unfair. Of course, Wikipedia has put a lot of features into beta recently, not just on their app, but on the website itself. You can sign up for a beta program with them now, where they put in some newer features, maybe bring it up a little bit up to date. Not that that's necessary. I don't mind when websites look like something out of the early aughts or the late 90s or something. I think that can have a lot of charm and utilitarianism to it. But if you really want to make Wikipedia look good, I've got an extension that I want you to check out, and it's called WikiWand. Okay, now you may have noticed that in the show notes, some of the links for Wikipedia actually say wikiwand.com, and that'll give you kind of a look at how this works. And what it does is that it just updates the interface for Wikipedia. It's a browser extension for Chrome, Firefox, and it really does bring Wikipedia up to snuff. I mean, if you're looking for that modern, really modern, good look, it delivers, where it puts, this big, beautiful picture on the top. It creates a sidebar, not with all the, different things perhaps that you want to do with Wikipedia. Of course, you can still access that. But a sidebar navigation to get to various points of perhaps the article that you're reading. And not just that, it does a whole lot more. It changes the typography, so it makes it a lot more, easier on the eyes, I think, to read. It eliminates a lot of the clutter. Like it makes the reference section in particular look a lot better. And it also makes it forces it into like how the mobile site looks, where the mobile site to eliminate information overload, it'll do an arrow tab where you can hide sections, or where you can roll up segments of the of the article, like the external links section or things like that. And it turns all that it does that to it as well. And the navigation is really something to use. I really like having that sidebar that takes you to very not just different segments, but even subsegments. Now that always exists at the top of the page on the standard view of Wikipedia. But this makes sure that it's always there. Okay, no matter where you scroll down, it stays as a separate element, which is really nice. That makes Wikipedia really, really easy to use. And amazingly, with speed tests, they've shown that using WikiWand and Wikipedia, and I know this is hard to believe, but it actually makes Wikipedia faster. You'd already think, it's like, how can you make Wikipedia faster? It's so bare bones in content. But it really does. I mean, at points, it actually... if you're using the extension and you're not just, because you can access WikiWand stuff on its own. And actually WikiWand in itself, the website, has a great curation of Wikipedia. Like its news section delivers the average, homepage of Wikipedia in a much more beautiful fashion. So you don't have to have the extension, but when you have the extension it takes the average Wikipedia article takes about 5 seconds to load. Now, come on, it's going to space. Can't you wait? Sure. But with the extension installed, it takes less than 2 seconds for the page to load. Phenomenal. So this is really cool. I mean, if you are, very serious about looking into Wikipedia, this is something to use. And it has other features too. It has the share feature. In fact, it looks very much, the share feature looks like Android, but it allows you to share a Wikipedia article on various sites that you have signed into it. So it's this nice cross-pollination of how things work on Android, but it puts it onto your desktop, which is pretty cool too. So again, if you're really serious about Wikipedia, and I know I am, I'm reading Wikipedia, just multiple times a day. This is just gold to have installed. I love it. And it doesn't have any crazy permissions either if you go with the extension, or just use the websites. That's fine. It's still faster, still cleaner. Check it out. WikiWand. Link in the show notes at sovereigntech.com. I'll be back with more.
What does freedom mean? Tune in to LRN.FM to find out. LRN.FM is the Liberty Radio Network, a collection of live talk radio and podcasts, all coming from a principled pro-liberty perspective. LRN.FM show hosts aren't left, right, or conspiracy kooks. You can tune in 24/7 to LRN.FM via your phone, computer, satellite, and more. Listen free anytime at LRN.FM. That's LRN.FM.
Oh, Natalia.
Oh, it feels so good. I'm so close.
I know what you need.
The climax.
It is time for the climax, where I talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about. It could be the most ridiculous subject ever. Or it could be a movie, it could be a TV show, it could be a comic book. You take your pick. It could be, all of the above. Could be even, hell, it could be a poem. In fact, I read a poem this week from a listener that was really sexy. I might have to talk about that in the future. I might have to get permission. But anyway, and it was about technology. It wasn't just any poetry. This week, I want to talk about one of my favorite subjects, that being Star Trek. And there's a few developments in Star Trek as of late that I really want to go over. The first thing I want to discuss is that this is something I had no idea occurred, but I am really amazed that it did. And that is that J. Michael Straczynski, the creator of Babylon 5, genius that he is, and in fact, real quick announcement, there is at SDCC this year, or it's not called the SDCC anymore. Anyway, at Comic-Con this year, J. Michael Straczynski said, we will make a Babylon 5 feature film. It's the only thing he really has the rights to make and make money off of it. And he won't be crowdfunding it because for various reasons, this is something you can look into. But it is going to be a reboot. Now, I hate reboots. Really. But if he says it, I trust him. I mean, it's his baby anyway. Let him have at it. And I will be, I'll be interested to see what comes of that. So essentially, they're going to ask some of the bigger studios in 2015 if they want to do it. If by the end of 2015, no big studio wants to take it on, he's going to self-make it in 2016. So that is coming. But anyway, J. Michael Straczynski, along with Bryce Zabel, they were... in 2004, they actually talked to, CBS, Paramount, whoever was necessary to talk to. They talked to the powers that be saying, look, let us take over Star Trek. Let us develop Star Trek. And they wanted to do a reboot as well. Ironically, because at the time, 2004, I don't think anyone was even interested in that sort of idea. Enterprise was on its way pretty much out the door. And I don't think anyone was interested in that happening. But, they were putting that forward long before the movies by J.J. Abrams came out. Now, I put a link in the show notes. You can read their proposal of what they wanted to do. And it's some interesting stuff. They wanted to go back to, they really wanted to do very much what J.J. Abrams is doing now. So it makes me think that really Paramount kind of copied the idea, that Straczynski had for Star Trek. The storyline was a bit different. It sounded like they were going to try and pull off some distant planet version of Atlantis, the city, to find this powerful lost city or something. That was sort of the storyline that they were talking about, but that's out there. And I had no idea that this ever occurred. But boy, can you imagine what Star Trek would have looked like with Straczynski at the helm? And it probably would have been great because honestly, Deep Space Nine, which for many people is their favorite because it was so dramatic, their favorite Star Trek, Deep Space Nine ended up copying, with all irony, they ended up copying Babylon 5 with doing multi-episode story arcs. Which is funny because I remember there was a book that was released in the 90s saying that, comparing Babylon 5 and Deep Space Nine, saying that Babylon 5 was a ridiculous idea because they're planning on this, 5-year-long story arc instead of doing episodic television where each episode has a, pretty much a concrete beginning and end. But then what does Deep Space Nine do by season 5? They start doing story arcs, multi-episode story arcs. They totally copied Babylon 5 because they saw the popularity that Babylon 5 was bringing in, and that it was stealing Star Trek's piece of the pie. So to say that Star Trek doesn't copy Straczynski's ideas a lot, they've already done it, and how? So you can read into this for yourself. I thought it was fascinating. Even though it's a reboot, I would have loved to have seen it. They make a great case for the reboot. It's a similar case to what J.J. Abrams ended up doing. So it really brings to the point that perhaps J.J. Abrams isn't even that much of a genius and he doesn't have that many great of an ideas. He's just copying what everybody else does. And maybe that's why these Star Trek movies, or at least the first one anyway, delivered so many goods, because in all actuality, it wasn't a J.J. Abrams film, or it wasn't a Robert Orci film. It was a Straczynski inspired film. Ooh. That's not to say Straczynski can't do bad things. I mean, the second Fantastic Four movie, Rise of the Silver Surfer? Was that what it was called? That was a bit of a lox. Anyway, so you can check that out. Link is in the show notes. I want to talk a little bit about also, why are we even talking about Star Trek? And I think it's important because Star Trek really is at the forefront. And I have one more topic I want to talk about Star Trek besides this one here. But Star Trek really is at the forefront of social change. It kind of always has been. It's really been ahead of the curve. And it shows that even people that you would think would be so open-minded by being Star Trek fans may not be so open-minded, because David Mack, who is a great author, he's written the Vanguard series, which is one of my favorite novel series. There's even an offshoot of the Vanguard novel series that looks really exciting. I haven't read the novel yet, though, for it. Taurus, I think it's called. Anyway, and in this novel, there is a point. Well, here, I'll read this from a reader of David Mack's first work on Vanguard. And the subject is, I will not be reading any of your books. David Mack will probably never read this email, but I am writing it anyway. I purchased and started reading your book, Harbinger, and stopped when I got to the part where the Vulcan woman, or the Vulcan, was having a homosexual affair with the Klingon spy. I deleted the book from my e-reader and will never purchase another volume authored by David Mack. You can call me a homophobe or use any other excuse you choose to write me off, but the truth is, homosexually, and that's how he typed it, is not universally accepted, and I get to decided, that's how he typed it, what I read, and I choose not to read any more of your work. And on top of that, no Vulcan would consider the situation logical. You can't just remold the Vulcan persona to suit yourself. I am just letting you know that you have lost at least one reader. I am not looking for a reply. Now, David Mack actually wrote a very impassioned reply saying, if he thinks the fear of alienating a few closed-minded readers is going to stop me from writing stories that feature and promote characters of diverse backgrounds, including LGBTQ characters, persons of color, and people who belong to ideological or philosophical minorities, he must be out of his mind. I'm a fucking Star Trek writer. Hasn't he ever heard of IDIC? Infinite diversity and infinite combinations? That's a Vulcan term. Most of my writing work to date has been for Star Trek, although the various television series could have been more in their respective times to portray ethnic and gender diversity. Those of us who write the licensed Trek fiction continue to do our best to depict a more progressive, enlightened, open, and harmonious future, not just for humanity, but for all sentient beings, one in which love, equality, and compassion are the touchstones of civilized society. To that end, we've tried to make our literary dramatis persona more closely resemble the people of Earth. We've tried to include more people of African, Asian, Southeast Asian ancestry than were seen in televised and feature film stories. We tried to incorporate characters who hail from many cultures and viewpoints. We've tried to imagine a future in which people of all faiths have learned to live in harmony with people of other creeds, as well as those who prefer to lead purely secular lives. We've tried to depict a future in which people's gender identities are no longer limited to some arbitrary, binary social construct, but rather reflect a more fluid sense of personal identity. I will never be made to feel shame for doing this. I am proud that we've been able to do this. I know we've still got more work to do, and we can do better at integrating more diverse viewpoints and characters into the ever-expanding universe of Star Trek. And there's a little bit more here. As for the author's subsequent assertion that no Vulcan would consider the situation logical, I would rebut that Spock himself told Valeris in Star Trek VI, logic is the beginning of wisdom, not the end. What Spock had learned that the author of this morning's email apparently has not is that there are, or what Spock has learned that the author of the email has not learned, is that there are many ingredients to wisdom, including but not limited to compassion and empathy. Absolutely. I think that David Mack responded very well to that criticism. And actually, Star Trek had the first interracial kiss. Star Trek may not have been the first, but it's got to be pretty close to the first lesbian kiss on network television. It has really led the way to social change many times, and often really when society was not ready for that change. And I give a lot of credit to fiction for doing that. You know, it's interesting. There's actually, it's kind of being a popular study going around that people who are fiction readers are actually more empathetic. In fact, there are people that you might want to get into romantic relationships with, because to be able to get lost in that story, that is the very heart of empathy, because you have to put yourself in the place of the people within the story. And so the idea is that on average, a lot of people that read fiction are very empathetic and loving people. That's kind of the study that's going around. And so you have to wonder, is this, fiction is important. How important? Maybe we don't know just how important stories have been throughout history. And Star Trek, I think, while not perfect, has definitely inspired me heavily and inspired many others. So now, going on, I want to talk about something that I saw that just absolutely blew my mind. Unfortunately, this one isn't loaded with empathy by any stretch, or forward thinking per se. But there is a project called Star Trek Axanar. Okay, this is not related to Star Trek Continues, which is phenomenal. But this is great too. But Star Trek Axanar, they just released, they did a couple of very successful Kickstarters, or at least one. They just released a 20-minute film called Prelude to Axanar. Now, this is something that's taking place. It's talking about the Battle of Axanar, where you find out about Garth of Izar and where he becomes like this huge hero in the Federation. And of course, eventually a hero to Captain Kirk. Richard Hatch is starring in this. Along with the guy that played General Martok in Deep Space Nine is in it as well. Of course, he's not playing a Klingon, interestingly, but Richard Hatch is. And boy, the production level on this is through the roof. It is high end. They are spending that money well. Really, really well done stuff. Now, there will be a full-on Star Trek Axanar coming out, but they have a podcast too where they talk about the development of everything on Trek.fm. But this Prelude to Axanar, find this. Unfortunately, it is about a battle in Star Trek, but it is really well done. They treat it, it's kind of like made like a documentary, and it's really cool, like how it ended up working out, and just top-notch work. And the point I want to bring to you is that the best stuff to happen in Star Trek is not happening in theaters. If you are a Star Trek fan like I am, the best things in Star Trek are happening everywhere else. in the comic books, like the release of Harlan Ellison's version of City on the Edge of Forever being done by IDW. There's a million areas or the works of David Mack with Vanguard. There's a million areas where the real goods, the real forward thinking that Star Trek always delivered, and not necessarily all the action or even like really respectful continuity things, all that stuff is happening everywhere outside of the big screen. So if you're looking for great Star Trek, it's out there, and it's even on YouTube, like with Star Trek Continues and others. Fantastic. So if you're a Star Trek fan, hell, it's a great time to be one. Anyway, that's enough for this week. More specials coming, don't worry. Carpe Lucem. I'll see you on the other side.
You just experienced Sovryn Tech. Go to sovryntech.com, that's SOVRYN tech.com, and connect with us there. Find links from today's show and catch our podcast feed. Sovryn Tech is copy heart. Copying art is an act of love, and love is not subject to law. So please share the show however you like. Welcome to the evolution.